We go forever and ever, yeah. You know that I'm much upset, yeah. You wish that you can do better, no, no, won't let her, We go forever and ever, yeah. I go and create the pressure, yeah. You wish that you can do better, You wish that you can do better, yeah, yeah. Ooh, we go forever and ever. We go forever and ever.
Welcome everyone to Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about mindset, life coaching, and how you can evolve your life from where you are to where you want to be. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and to share this video and our audio. And you're going to want to share this episode especially because today I'm going to be having a special guest, Nikki Brock, who's going to be sharing some of her wisdom and what she does as a coach. In this interview, bombshell after bombshell after bombshell of information and wisdom. You do not want to miss this episode. We are going to be making clips, TikToks, you name it. It has to go out because what we talk about today is so essential for our success, for our life. Because we have two choices, to live a fulfilled life or to live a life with regret. Which one do you want? And if you want to live a fulfilled life, you're not going to want to miss this interview with Nikki Brock and myself. Welcome, Nikki Brock, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing well. So today I have you on as a certified professional coach. And that is maybe the vaguest term that we can give someone saying, hey, I'm a certified professional coach. Well, they're going to say, well, what do you coach? In your own words, explain, what do you do as a certified professional coach and how do you help people?
I provide people with life coaching as well as business coaching. And to drill down a little deeper into the business coaching, it's primarily around career and organizational development. So if I'm coaching someone as an individual and they want business coaching, career coaching, we go and we develop some content around their purpose. And that content involves some of the things they've done in the past, some previous jobs they've had. And then what I do is I find the common thread between those roles and find out really what their gifts are and how they want to apply them based on the current marketplace. So they may be on a team, have some challenges. I pull out the best in people to find out what are your real goals. More importantly, what are your domino goals? Because your domino goals are the things that if you tackle one thing, it kind of solves a lot of other problems. So we kind of do a little bit of decoding and how to work with sometimes challenging managers and teammates, how to evolve your career, even in a recession. It's still very possible. So I do that for people as individuals. When I coach corporate teams, we talk about the team goals and how to move the team in the right direction, how to look at the company culture and assess where do we need to make the modifications to get the right people in the right roles, moving this engine forward.
You said something about finding purpose, helping people find purpose. What are the steps that you take to help someone find their purpose?
So we first start talking about what are their dreams? If their dreams were guaranteed success, what would those things be? What are the things that bring them joy, whether you're getting paid for it or not? So I try to extract what their passions are. I create an atmosphere of safety and trust that they're in a non-judgment zone. You can share the things that might seem minute, and we put them all out on the table. And so we look at those things. We look at what really makes you happy versus what's supposed to make you happy, or this is a job where I can make a lot of money, but I feel so unfulfilled. We go to that vulnerable place and we start exploring those parts. And then once we put that on the table, we start finding patterns in their past that really start creating a message for them that just won't go away. It's like that recurring theme. Sometimes people have something that just keeps coming back. It may come back every week. It may come back every month, a couple times a year, but it still keeps coming back. And so that is the thing that we try to tap into, because somewhere in there is where their purpose is.
And you said something interesting in there. You're talking about their passions, right? So people can find their passions, and sometimes people get into careers because they were told to. So they might fall into a career because it's a family business or because they thought it'll make them a lot of money. It wasn't necessarily a passion. It was just money was the driver. So sometimes you might go into a company and you find these people who are just miserable in the company setting. They don't want to work as a team member. They don't like the culture there, but you have to help them grow, right? You have to help the business. You have to help them thrive. What are some ways that you can help them be more optimistic in those situations, especially if it's not their passion or if they have to stay in this job because of circumstance?
I'm a realist. And I think sometimes when people think of coaches, they think, oh, that's the warm, fluffy, feel good person that just is going to tell you everything is roses and sunshine every day. And I'm a realist because I know we all have foundational needs and we all have to eat. So what I do is take a look at what are your foundational needs? What are the core things that you need in order to take care of yourself? When we look at careers, we also have to forgive ourselves for what we didn't know. We did the best in where we were when we chose this career for whatever reason that might be. We have to come to terms with that and come to peace with that before we actually can move forward. There are things that we gained and maybe some things that we lost. Sometimes you can't take a win without taking a loss. So we come to terms and reconcile those things and accept ourselves for where we are. So when we come to peace with that, we don't have to play the blame game. My parents made me do this, or I felt pressured to do that. Once we reconcile that, it gives us a clean slate. It gives us a fresh perspective of now I can start, now that I've come to terms with it, I've accepted certain challenges in my past. Now I can really start looking at who am I now? Because who I was then may have needed to go walk the process that I did because I wouldn't know what I know now had I not been on that journey. So now we come to a crossroads of reconciling, forgiveness. We start establishing clarity. So now we're ready to start doing the work moving forward. We start looking at the skills that we obtained as a result of the path we were on. Then we couple that with our gifts. And so that's when we start, all right, now I'm ready to start navigating because I have to define me before I can change anything. I got to start with a blueprint, a game plan. And so sometimes, even if we're in a company that has a toxic culture, pending that we are not, I've worked, sidebar, I worked as an HR professional for a very long time. As long as we are not compromised, disrespected, feel ousted, or not included in situations, as long as our integrity in our workplace is there, then we can start, okay, let me do an assessment of what skills I have, what's my purpose, what's around me. Because when I have a better understanding of self, I'm able to see things through a different lens. There might be opportunity within my current organization that I never considered because one, I hadn't reconciled, I haven't revised my purpose, and I haven't established goals for my current self. Because who we were at 20, 21 is much different than who we are now. And that's okay. So we have to have the courage to reinvent ourselves based on what we know. And so when we kind of assess the landscape of the current marketplace, job marketplace, the organizations that we might be working in, we can start finding gems that might have been in front of us all along. And we've just been overlooking simply because we hadn't done the inventory. So that's usually where we begin, my clients and I. We start with taking inventory on who we are, what we have, and gratitude. Then we start setting goals, and then we start knocking those goals down. And I'm proud to say that it works. Reconciling our paths really works. And 85% of my clients have received promotions or increases or gone to other companies for a bigger opportunity because of the work that we did, doing the inventory, the personal inventory, and reassessing our goals. It works.
I love the idea of just being a realist, telling people the truth. And sometimes it's the hard truth where it's like a wake up call. I would rather people tell me the hard truth than sugarcoat things, fluff things up. I don't want that. Tell me how it is. Tell me what I need to do. Because if you're over here holding my hand and babying me, I'm never going to be an adult. I'm just going to always be giving myself 50% and then hoping someone else fills in that rest. But I can't live life that way. People can't live life that way because they have a unique goal that they want to accomplish that only they can, right? Now, of course, they can say, I don't want to accomplish great things in my life, and they can just take the complacency path. But what about the people who don't want to take that path? What about the people who want to dare greatly and defy the odds and to rise from a level that they maybe thought was impossible? And I love the idea of being a dreamer and being a go-getter and being a doer because you can see the progress that you make. And I completely understand that we have to be real because we do have a mouth to feed, whether it be ours or our family. We have to handle our business in a sense where we might not have to do the things we love, but we do the things we have to do. So you might not be in a job that you love, but you do it because you are with your family. And the idea of that you're doing something that gives you that purpose, then you're like, okay, well, this is that. But then you have to have an escape plan. I'm a big fan of if you don't like something, figure out how you can change that, right? So if you are in a job that you don't like, and I'll give an example. I had a client who hated his job. He said, I hate my job. I don't want this job anymore. I said, well, what do you want to do? He says, I want to do this. Okay. I said, all right, not a problem. We could do that, right? But we're not going to just leave our job because that's going to create a lot more issues. So we're going to figure out a path for us to leave that job. And so he was going on all these different tangents of things that he wanted to do. Well, lo and behold, everything that he wanted to do was actually what his wife wanted to do. So his wife was telling him, hey, I want this, I want this, I want this. But he wasn't really looking at himself. He was just like, well, she wants this. Your wife's telling you what to do. So he was like, yeah, you're right. And so once we got that, we were able to figure out a plan where it's like, okay, we can appease her, but then we can appease ourselves too. So yes, you have to sometimes look at your whole situation, but then you plan for it accordingly. And I think sometimes people, they get into this way of thinking of, I'm in this pit, I can't get out, or my circumstance is this, I can't change. And I understand if you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on school, if you want to be a lawyer or a doctor, and then you find out you don't want to be a lawyer or a doctor, that's a lot of money for school. But at the same time, you said something wonderful. Sometimes we're going down a path, but those skills and those knowledges that we gain or bits of wisdom are going to help us somewhere down the line. For me, I was an accountant, then I was a teacher. Now I'm a coach. You might not think, well, how does accounting help with your business? Well, I have a business, right? I have to do the accounting work. How does teaching help with coaching? Well, teaching is coaching, essentially. Learning different personalities. I learned that through different people that I've coached over my life and over my career. So we learn from our mistakes or we learn from our path, and the path is so unique. And I always tell people, don't be afraid to walk your path, because if you can walk your path and you can be proud of your path, no one else can do that. Because someone's always going to see a different perception when they're walking. They're going to say, oh, look at that mountain. You might say, oh, look at the birds. Oh, look at that flower. You will have a different journey. So yes, you might be going down the same corporate ladder as many people, but the journey that you go on, that's up to you. How do you want your story to be at the end? Because sometimes people are like, well, I want this, I want this, I want this. And they place happiness as a contingency in the future. The problem with that is that happiness is not a destination. And when people come up to you and they're like, hey, Nikki, I'm just not happy with my career, what are some ways that you can help them understand that happiness is not a destination or a goal? It's more of, hey, you need to look at you first and then start that process. What is your process to helping people realize if they're not happy, how to get happy?
You know, when people come to me with questions like that, a few of my clients, I applaud them for where they are. And sometimes they don't realize how powerful even the question, I want to be happy. How do I get to a more joyful state? The fact that you ask the question means there's a desire. You have a desire to be better. You recognize there's a gap and a shortfall. So let's figure out where the gap is. So then we go back a little bit into an individual's history. And I look at mistakes as data of how something turns out. So when scientists, when they make mistakes, it's just data. I learned something as a result of these mistakes, and therefore it made the mistake worth learning, pending you recoup from it. We look at the data and analyze the data. What does the data tell us? It tells us you like this, you don't like this. It tells us this is a trigger. It means that this excites you, this motivates you. And as we look at the data, it'll tell a story. So I take a very scientific approach to coaching to keep people on action plans, because I don't want my clients to get into a very esoteric space where they just keep doing laps around the pool. You know, that is not the goal. People want action, they want results. And so something similar when you were talking about your client, I had a woman and we looked at her data, some big decisions she wanted to make. And she ended up passive aggressively doing things to tamper with the outcome. And I finally had real talk with her because I'm a realist. And I said, do you realize that you're turning over your power? So be it your client whose wife is making the decisions, be it a client I had who was trying to get fired. She was doing things to create disruption in the workplace because of her own frustration, because she was afraid to make the decision to leave the organization. She wanted them to make the decision for her. So taking back our power is a very scary thing. And that's what people are saying when they're looking for happiness. I want my power back. I want to learn how to feel comfortable making difficult decisions. And so when we put the data together in this scientific approach, we start giving people data that's actionable, that we don't want you to jump out the window with a decision that hasn't been thought through, because something in your current environment may unlock something necessary for your happiness and for your joy. But if we don't start looking at that and taking back our power, taking the responsibility that comes with it, we'll never experience joy. Because if someone made a decision, had a positive outcome, I can't even take credit for it because I didn't have the courage to make that decision myself. And that's where we want to give clients power back. And that's the keys to joy, because everything we need really is inside us. It's just a matter of aligning it, having the courage to show up for ourselves, looking at the data, not being afraid of it, not running from it. That's how we start to find our voice, find our purpose. And really, we've been in touch with our purpose all along. We just haven't put it together. And that's my job, is to put it together for people.
You said taking back power. Who took our power?
The answer varies for a lot of different people. Sometimes it happened when we were young and power was taken and we felt like we would never have it back. It could be, traumatic situations. Sometimes it's indecision. And I find in many cases, that is it. They're not confident as a decision maker because of a mistake they may have made. And they have told themselves negative things to say, oh, I can't make good decisions, or maybe I'm not smart enough. And when we keep feeding ourselves negative talk, our self-esteem, our courage drops, it plummets. Now, if that all happens inside, how can we expect anybody on the outside to change that? So, not that I know your client's situation, but one of the questions for your client is, why do you feel comfortable turning over decision-making abilities to your wife versus you making the decisions yourself? And she might be just filling in the gaps where he's not comfortable. So for people like that, it's like being comfortable to say, you know what, if I make mistakes, we'll survive. I'll be strategic. Everything is a risk. Even happiness is a risk. And those that take the steps to be happy and take the risk are 9 times out of 10 gonna find joy and exhilaration in the process, because that's what living is. And people have forgotten how to do that. Sometimes we have to unplug. Sometimes we have to sit with ourselves. Sometimes we really just have to explore, what would happiness look like on the other side? What does it look like when we show up for ourselves? I call it that zero gravity moment, because I saw this special and they were talking about people who would travel all over the world to ride roller coasters. And they were riding roller coasters for this like half a second experience of zero gravity where you feel like you're levitating. And that's what people are looking for, those moments. But those moments we have to earn, those moments we have to really strategize for, and we have to study ourselves, and we can't run from ourselves. So the person who is very centered is more likely going to find those moments in their lives.
I like the idea of we are on that journey, that path, we're looking for something and it's within us. If we look down at our journey, we really look deep, we can find out the issues that stopped us from being confident, that stopped us from being out of power in a sense. Maybe it was in school, you're in elementary school and someone bullied you. They said you're ugly, they didn't like your hair, they didn't like the way you smiled. So you didn't smile. So you didn't feel confident, you didn't feel pretty or handsome. Well, that doesn't have to carry on throughout your whole entire life. When do you define who you are? And I think a lot of people, they just accept what people tell them. I don't like you. okay, well, I guess there's things that I don't like either about myself. So I'm going to be insecure about those things. It takes a certain type of mindset to get into the way of thinking that I don't care what other people think. I'm going to do me every single day, and there's nothing that's going to stop me. That is a very brave type of mentality because in society, in a sense, we're told to be quiet. We're told to be soft. We're told to tiptoe. Why do you think in school you have to raise your hand to speak? We learn this and we have to unlearn it. So, what many people have to do when they're adults is they have to unlearn all of those negative moments, those traumas, those those methods that has lowered their voice, muted it in a sense. We should be loud. We should be the people we should become versus the people that we were bred to become. Our parents have the best intentions for us, but sometimes our parents can even be that sound barrier that stop us from listening to our true self. Maybe because they understand that the career that they want to go on is not an easy career, it's not an easy path. For example, let's just use a comedian, for example. Being a comedian sounds fun, right? They tell jokes, they're lively, they're on stage, but there's so many comedians that are vying for that number one spot to be on top, to be on TV, to make it. Not everyone does. So a parent might see that challenge and say, just don't do that. Get a safe 9 to 5 job, take the safe bet because the way you want to go, there's a lot of uncertainty. But the idea of uncertainty is that it can create abundance later on. If we do what everyone is doing, there's going to be scarcity around, not because there's not enough to go around, but because of the mindset of everyone around saying, I have to be better. I have to be number one. Everyone's in competition with each other when we should really be looking at ourselves and making ourselves better. When we get that distraction of looking at people as my competition versus me as my competition, what type of mentality does that create? That competitive type of mindset. When we look at other people, I have to be better than you versus looking at ourselves and I want to be better than I am today. Maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And that's the focus within. Sometimes we have to have courage to even just deal with our baggage or the things that are vulnerable or hurtful or painful that we've held on to. And there's something called negative bias. So, negative bias is the type of thinking where we lean to the negative thoughts. It's why you can put on a nice outfit, go out to dinner, and from the, hostess table to your table, 3 people may have said, you look great. And then you have one person outside the door and you hear them say, oh, I hate his whatever, or I hate her whatever. 3 to 1, one negative comment, 3 positive comments. Our negative bias causes us to lean towards the negative. That is the resounding thought that we walk away with. And that's inherent in our thinking. And that perhaps may be a defense mechanism for us to be able to problem solve and tackle challenges. At the same token, we have to counter that because we get so much exposure to so many different things. So I have to make sure that I have 5 times the amount of positive affirmations to counter that one negative thought. And then we start to shift our mindset. So when we're able to do that, we have to do that not externally first, we have to do that internally because we feed ourselves a lot of negative thinking. When we have the courage to break through some of those things, then we start to really experience progress. And then we start teaching people how to treat us because it's what I think about me that matters most. If I carry myself a certain way, and we're not talking about anything expensive, it's just a presence and an energy that we give off. That it deters certain people from speaking to you. And then we're wondering why didn't she speak to me? That's because I'm giving something really good and you might not be in the same place I'm in. And that's fine. And it took me a long time to get to a place where I'm just like, it's okay if you don't have anything to say, because they know that you've got to prep what you're going to say if you're going to approach me, especially if your first thought isn't a positive one. And so it's okay for people to have distance with some folk. That's okay. It's not okay for us to have distance with ourselves. So many times we don't sit with ourselves quietly to say, Michael, how are we feeling today? What we're doing today? Because and I know as people who have taken risk, you have to choose positivity every single day I mean, you have to wake up in the morning, no matter how you feel. If you don't feel good, my goal is to get to my feel good. My feel good is coming. I am feel good oriented and not in this very superficial way. It's in my mindset. And if I have to do a meditation, if I have to take a walk around the block, go to the gym, eat something great, hydrate, I might have a cocktail of feel good, not literal cocktail, but I may have a cocktail of things that make me feel good authentically, that don't require a hangover, that doesn't require an addiction or anything like that, because people lean to those things for similar reasons. But I've got to have a routine. I have to have healthy habits that are going to build me. Sometimes we don't feel good because we're not hydrated. I mean, simple things. And then we take that and we spiral because internally, my body is not feeling good. Did I get enough sleep? Now, after you're a particular age, that sleep becomes very important for you to maintain just your sensibility and attitude. But there's a lady who did a book in, I forget her name, but it's Food is Mood. And on our checklist of feel good, many times we are looking to other people to make us feel good when so much of that is within our own capability. Being hydrated, eating something good, enough movement, going to the doctor, getting routine checkups. This is how we re-energize and reset ourselves. So it's September, just about October. By the time we get to the end of the year, we're like, I don't want to celebrate New Year's because I didn't have any breakthroughs. I didn't live out any of my resolutions. Well, I'm here to tell you there's still time. You can reset yourself every single day. In fact, it's a requirement. Until you build those routines that they're just kind of like what you do, that they're ingrained, until we get to that point, we have to be extremely intentional. And all that comes from the inside. So before we require anything of anybody else, I got to start with me. I got to, when we hear the phrase, I need to do me, like really, you got to do you. Once we do that, our focus changes, the way we view the world changes, the way we interact with people change, the way we listen, the way we see opportunity. Sometimes we walk over opportunity because we're not in alignment with ourselves. And so that's part of the thing that we as coaches do. That's why I love. I've had several careers, but I was born to coach.
And there's nothing wrong with having a feel good cocktail. Just want to let you know that. So
I don't object to that either.
if you're thirsty, why not have a tasty beverage? It could be an adult beverage. It doesn't hurt. But
Right.
I do love everything you said. You're dropping bombs after bombs today. I just want to let you know that we have that aspect of fear, I think, too, that we give ourselves. And we say, okay, well, I don't know how I should feel, so I'm just going to keep feeling the way I feel, right? And people scrumming up to old age sometimes too. They say, well, I'm getting older. Well, guess what? Well, our bodies do change, yes. And we have to understand ourselves. What I do every single morning is I do a self-assessment on myself. How am I feeling? Am I tired? Am I hungry? Am I achy anywhere, right? I look at every aspect so I know, okay, tomorrow, or if I have to make changes later in the day, I can do that. My path is not going to be as routine as maybe someone who says, well, I don't care how my body feels and I'm just going to do exactly what I'm going to do. Eventually, you're going to break down. But if you can understand where you are each and every single day, then you can act accordingly. Because if you're maybe at 50%, right, you had a really bad cold and you're recovering, recover. Spend your time on recovery. That is more important than you trying to go after your goal for one day. And you find out you go after your goal all day and you're doing all these emails and writing all these proposals. And you find out at the end of the day, you got nothing done when you should have prioritized your work later and prioritize yourself first. So I think sometimes people, they have the priorities mixed up, right? Sometimes it could be family related. It could be career related. It could be personal related. We have to figure out what's important and then the order that we should be going in. For example, do you water your lawn before you cut your lawn? No. Typically, you cut your lawn and then you will weed. And then if you want to put down new seed, then you can water, put the hay, right? You're just not doing things in reverse order. There's an order to things. And coaches typically know the correct order that you should be moving in. Sometimes people are like, oh, I'll try this. I'll try this. It might be a great idea, but if you're going in the wrong order, you're going to find yourself confused, burned out very quickly because you're doing things, you're making your life more difficult. And when you have a coach, they're there to help take some of that struggle away, to help you realize, okay, this is a better path to go on. versus the path that you're going on is going to be a lot more turns, a lot more problems, a lot more trial and error. We can mitigate all that. And it's important to have someone on your side, someone on your team saying, hey, this is the blind spot right now for you. Let's make them aware of it. Because if you are on a journey of life, right? So you're going down life and you might be by yourself a lot of the time, but then you might find someone who's like really great. If it's the opposite sex, you're like, okay, I'm going to marry that. And then you enjoy that company, right? And then you have like a new motivation, a new motive. You have to understand that just because you found someone on that journey doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have that motivation inside of you from the get-go. And I think sometimes people think that they look for this person, they look for this right moment, right? It's that contingency aspect of many people. They are looking for the right thing, they're looking for the right moment. And I know there's going to be people who are listening to this interview and they're going to say, I'm writing down Nikki's number and her email and her website. But you know what they're not going to do? They're not going to reach out to you. They're not going to say, all right, Nikki, I saw you on Coaching in Session and I wanted to reach out to you because everything you said was amazing. They're going to wait a month, 3 months, 6 months until they break down, until they have enough traumas or enough hardships in their life. And they say, well, what can I do? Oh, yes, my lifeline, Nikki. I remember. I'm going to reach out to her. Why do you think people wait until a trauma or a hardship happens in their life before they take action when they know deep down inside, this is going to help me now, but they wait until everything breaks down and then they finally get it fixed?
That's a great question. And I think the core of that is they feel like I can still find my way through because we now, especially now, I don't think this is a recent phenomenon, but now we live in a self-service environment. When you call someone or you need help, you buy a product, you subscribe to something, they send you to YouTube and learn how to fix it yourself. And that's what we tell people, fix yourself yourself. Well, how long does that last? And I feel like the older we get, there's a lot of, the body changes when you get older, but I think there's a lot of benefits to getting older. It's wisdom. We exchange some physical prowess for wisdom because you can't have both of them. Not completely, not all at one time. That's why I have readers, but I use my readers and they help and support me, but it's the wisdom I exchange that for. So if I have to exchange wisdom for readers, I'm going to do it every day. But many times in our society, we're telling people to fix yourself. You got it. Self-help, self-care. And what if you don't know how to care for yourself? As adults, we're a little embarrassed to say that. When you finally get a chance, the kids are gone, spouse is gone, and you're alone and you're like, okay, this is my time for self-care, but I don't know how to care for myself. That is a very embarrassing moment that people try desperately to avoid. Help yourself, do it yourself, get a YouTube video, that'll solve everything. What I tell people is that you don't wait to fill up your car when you're on E, because it's going to bring a lot of negative things out of you. It's going to be a stressor. You're going to endure more things that you don't necessarily have to. It may take you to a low point. You may compromise and sacrifice things along the way versus filling up when you're on a quarter tank or half a tank. Because American society tells us to keep pushing. You got it. You got things to do. You don't have time for help. You got to help somebody else. Well, I'm not at my best. And we're also told your joy comes last. Now, we are very sensational and provocative society, but it doesn't necessarily equate to joy. So I encourage people, get support before you're on E. Definitely get it if you're on E, but get it in lieu of, because that's when you're at your strongest point. You're at a stronger place. It may take you a shorter amount of time. Some people might need a coach for 6 months, but if you go sooner, when you realize there's a problem, you might need that coach only 3 months. You may cut your recovery time, your direction in half, expedite your career twice as fast as a person who waited until they were on their last leg before they decided to get help. So I want us as Americans and, anywhere else, it's like, let's not wait until we are absolutely depleted. Yes, we will still help you, but what the damage you do to yourself when you're on your last leg versus when you're in a position of strength, it's the difference of night and day. Your implementation happens much faster when you are more motivated to get help, when you respond at the point of need versus at the point of just disaster. But that's the way we're taught. Help yourself, do it yourself. Oh, you know what? Put your feelings aside, suck it up. I'm busy. There's this phrase called active procrastination. We will, and this is what you referenced, we will do so many things, but not the most important things. If we handle the most important things, it will accelerate our growth. And that's why when I was saying about 85% of my clients have gotten promotions, that's because they were like, I'm going to seize this moment in this moment, and I'm just going to sort my way through. So for me, with my business, there is content that I do for free because I feel like coaching should be available to everyone. So there's free content that you can get, things that you can read, be an insider, subscribe. I'll send out monthly content and worksheets that people can do to move themselves forward. At a certain point, I know based on the breadth of experience I had, I've worked at Fortune 200 companies. I've coached C-suite leadership folks. I was a former journalist and reporter, and every situation I went into, be it a crime scene, police are on the side, grieving family, I always coached in every situation. And so with that breadth of experience, I have an ability to touch on things that are sore spots for people. And it's okay, because if we don't identify the source of the pain, we can't get you to a more joyful existence, a more purposeful existence. And when you get to that point, it doesn't mean that every day you don't keep fighting for another opportunity, but success, but you do it with a new vigor. You do it and you're excited. You do it because you want to do it. And then it becomes the reason why you get out of bed. Because I want to fight this fight. I want to do better. I'm making progress. I'm growing. I'm not where I was a year ago. I'm not where I was 3 months ago. That to me is joy, when you see yourself growing, moving, because then you become curious. If I'm different than I was 3 months ago, where am I going to be 3 months from now? If I keep leaning in, showing up for myself, we as coaches will show up for you. But you got to take that step. And we want to meet people where they are. But I would rather meet someone in a place of a little indecision, a little uncertainty, a little bit afraid, quite candidly, not knowing where it will go. I would rather meet someone there than someone that says, yes, I'm meeting with you. I know it all. I got this locked up. And then they find out I don't have it locked up. I don't know it all. I have some vulnerability. I have this wall. But if we spend all the time trying to break down the wall, it takes longer to get to your purpose.
Definitely. And I mean, I've been there behind that wall, where I remember my brother, he had asked me, this is in college, this is like my whole mindset journey, one of the starts, probably the second start, where he came into the room and he was like, are you happy? And I'm like, what kind of question is that? Of course I'm happy, right? Got good grades, money, girls. What else do I need? I'm thinking in my head, right? Then he asked me again, like, but are you happy? And it took me a little bit to realize, like, he's just not asking, do I have the superficial things? Am I intrinsically fulfilled and satisfied with my life? When that happened to me, what I had to do was I had to dismantle everything. I had to get rid of my ego again, get rid of my old habits, friends, to figure out, let me see if this is really what I want. And I could build things back. I could build the same thing I had. I already know how to build it. I did it before, but then it gave me the opportunity to build exactly what I wanted. And just because you want something at 20 doesn't mean you're going to want it at 30. Same thing if you want something at 45, doesn't mean you want it at 65. You change, you grow, you develop. And on that journey, on that process, there's going to be many choices that you have to make. There's going to be some things that you might regret later on in life. Oh, I wish I did that. It typically happens when people don't buy a certain stock. I'm sure a lot of people wanted to buy Tesla or Google or PayPal or YouTube. We can mitigate some of that by taking action, the right action. Don't take the wrong action. Don't just start taking movements and say, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this. And you're doing 100 different things, but you're not getting anything done. I think it was Denzel Washington. He said it. I think he said it along someone else saying it. Don't mistake movement for progress. Sometimes people are doing all these actions, but they're making no progress. It's similar to how when you're swimming, you can splash all you want. Yeah, you're moving your body, but you might not be going anywhere. So if you're drowning in life and you're looking for a life coach, they can help you. They can help you from drowning. They can help you from wasting all that energy because you have so much potential. Oftentimes we waste it. We just leave it on the table every single day. We waste energy every single day with actions that are not necessary, that are not beneficial for us. So if you want to pinpoint that, that is where I think a coach is going to be essential for your growth and for your future self, because you're going to say, I did this because I had someone looking at me, seeing my wasted energy. Because when we're wasting energy, we don't necessarily know it. Similar to how when we're on our smartphone and we're going to TikTok and YouTube, we don't know it until we spend an hour. We're like, wow, hour just passed. I just wasted an hour looking at videos that don't matter. Maybe they did. Maybe you got something from them, but typically people waste their time, whether it be on television, their smartphones, video games. They do that as an escape to not take action, to not look at their life, and to not be on purpose. We have to start to learn how to be on purpose. And I love the conversation that you and I had today, Nikki. It was bomb after bombshell. You were wonderful. You're a rock star. If I can from you, can I get any final words? And then please share with people how they can find you.
Yes. Final words. Well, the final word is we're going to do this again because I just think our energy is so good. I love what you say, you're spot on. What a compliment. And I can tell you definitely are a real coach because I know coaching is hot and there's everybody saying, I'm a coach, I'm a coach, I'm a coach. What I want people to know is that you deserve to show up for yourself and feel good about it. If you feel like you're not showing up for yourself, it doesn't matter where you go. If you go to work, church, family, friends, it starts with you. You cannot put yourself at the back of the line. If you're doing that right now, I would highly encourage you to talk to a coach, pursue some information. I'm a realist, so you don't have to be afraid that a coach is going to ask you or demand you to do something completely out of your norm. We're going to peel the layers back and find out what really makes you tick. And we're going to create game plans for you on how to move you forward. You deserve to be authentic. You deserve to be happy. If you believe the happiness is for other people, then you should be one of those other people. And you can find me quite easily. My website is brockcoaching.com, or you can find me on Instagram at Nikki Brock M Coach. That's on Instagram and on Facebook. I'm on Facebook as well as Nikki Brock M.
I'll put all that information in the description box below where people can easily find you, reach out to you, inquire about what you do, and of course, getting those free nuggets. I'm a big fan of putting out a weekly blog for people to read at their own leisure. We have the podcast that's on YouTube, on 25 plus audio platforms, Spotify, Apple. I mean, you name it, it's probably there. So it's there for you to get better. And I bring on wonderful coaches like Nikki who have an opportunity to tell their piece and say, this is what I do. This is how I help. This is what I see. And then if you can relate to her is what I always look for, because when you're looking for a coach, you want someone who has the same synergy with you, where you're working with someone that you respect, that you admire, because that kind of pushes you and propels you. I want to be better. It's not that I want to be her or I want to be him. I want to have the wonderful mentality that they have. And when you have a coach, mindset coach, a life coach, they are going to help you get to that mentality that you're vying for, because it's not so much of the person that you try to be or try to mimic. It's what they have on the inside, that mentality. And that's an important aspect to have, because that's going to feed you every single day. It's the same aspect of you can teach a man how to fish or you can give a man a fish. Well, we're going to teach you how to fish. When we do that, you're going to create abundance on your own accord. And it's not going to be simply because we made it happen. I want to thank you so much, Nikki, for coming on, coaching this session. It was a great conversation, and I loved everything we talked about.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate your time. This was nice.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching the interview with Nikki Brock and myself. As you can see, the things that we spoke about are so essential for our success, for our mindset. And we talk about so many different things there, where we talk about fear. We talk about the idea of stepping into your power, the idea of that we are our own worst enemies, that we are living life because we are circumstanced into that way of thinking, when in reality, we can change our circumstances. I find that many people who give themselves excuses are just trying to put a Band-Aid over a gunshot wound. You need to go to the hospital. You need surgery. Don't put a Band-Aid over it. But many people do. They just say, I'm just going to look for the quick fix. And there's nothing wrong with putting a tourniquet on a gunshot wound and you're going to the hospital to get surgery later. You're doing the steps necessary for your growth. What are the steps necessary for growth? Well, maybe the first step is realizing where you are. I typically help clients who are stuck and trying to figure out how to get their life back to normal or get their life back to where it should be. We look at where they are. Okay, well, how much damage occurred? Maybe you have a negative mindset, very pessimistic. Maybe you had a divorce, lost your job, career, kids are upset with you. I mean, there could be many different things that weigh heavy on your mind. And when we have that weight of society and of all the things going on, we need sometimes someone to hold the space when we're getting rid of all of our garbage, all that trash in our mind and things that are not helpful for us. We need someone to help shift through all that to find the treasures and get rid of everything else that we don't need. We often hoard all these negative emotions when we should be hoarding positive emotions, positive situations, positive scenarios. Why are we so focused on the negative? And if you remember in the interview with Nikki and myself, we talked about the idea of negative. Well, the brain is conditioned to be negative. It's a survival instinct. When we see the rustling in the bushes, we're like, uh-oh, something's going to kill me. There's a snake in there. There's a bear. There's something that's going to harm me. And it helps my body stay alive. If I have to run, fight or flight, it's going to give me the adrenaline I need to boogie on out of there. But the problem is now, the moment we see a negativity, our brain is still hardwired to think that way. So if someone has a negative remark and they say something that hurts my feelings or makes me feel a certain way, I have two choices. I can allow it to affect me, or I can work through that. And it's not so much of that sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me, because words have power, and power behind those words are going to be dependent on what we allow in our mind. So break that down. If someone says something to me, I have a choice to allow them to have control of how I feel or to not give them control of how I feel. People are going to say they hate me. They might say I'm ugly. They might say I'm a narcissist. I mean, you name it. I was probably called it, and I don't mind. Many people, they are so concerned about peer acceptance, about what other people want, what other people think about you. Guess what? If you don't like me, that's on you. I like me. The people that I keep in my life, I think they like me. And if they don't, that's their loss. I'm not concerned about what other people have for me in their mind. Because if I'm worried about that, then I'm wasting so much time in my life. I don't have time to be worried about what someone thinks about me, what someone says about me. I have things to do. I have things to accomplish. And if I'm worried about what someone said or what someone did, I'll never make any progress. And I'm all about progress. I'm all about making moves. So if someone hits you with that negative remark or negative saying, you can allow that to sit, pay attention to it. Because if it's from a best friend or from a family member, ask yourself, is this a toxic trait? Because maybe you have to get rid of that person. And I'm quick. Ooh, you can ask my wife. I am quick to get rid of people instantly. It's not that I don't allow for mistakes in learning. There's a difference between making a mistake, an honest mistake, and then being incompetent. And sometimes people are so worried about their own life that they don't see the cause and effects of what they do. They might be doing something in the benefit for them, but then it hurts you really in the end. Because that negative thought or that negative emotion that they pass on to you, that stays with you. Maybe for a week, maybe for a month, maybe for a year, maybe for a lifetime. We can't have that there constantly. We can't have that roadblock. We can't have that negative voice, that whisper in our ear saying all these negative things, all these harmful things, detracting us from our success, from stepping into our power. Because in a sense, we have everything we need right now to be successful. You might need some more knowledge, maybe gain some wisdom, but that's just part of life. You're going to gain knowledge and wisdom whether you like it or not. You can choose to get wisdom quicker by getting a coach, getting a mentor, getting a guide, having someone along the way with you. That's wisdom. Knowledge is you going off doing it yourself, and then the trial and error part, that's creating wisdom on your own, which is better. Well, embodied wisdom has a powerful aspect to it. I'm not going to say that embodied wisdom is wrong. However, If you're trying to get to A to B and you're not worried about the embodied wisdom and learning life lessons, you don't need to go through all those trials and errors. Get a coach. And I always tell people, you don't need a coach to get to where you want to be, but if you get a coach, they're going to help you get where you want to be a lot quicker. And it's very hard in today's day and age in our society of all the negative mindsets, all the pessimism, all the hardships, all the turmoils, all the traumas. It's causing a lot of people a lot of pain. And that pain is kind of like putting your hand in the fire. You learn your lesson. You're like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. I'm not going to do that again. So you try to be successful. You try to start a business. You try to do the right thing. You try and you get burned. And now you're afraid. You don't take action anymore. How can you start to retake action? How can you start to change your mindset that when the bushes start rustling, you're not worried about something's going to come out and kill you? And it takes time to rewire your brain for however you want it to be. You want it to be positive. You want it to be courageous. You want it to be confident. That takes time. Take actionable steps toward that way of being, that way of thinking, that way of living. And I love everything that we talked about, again, with Nikki, because we talked about the truth. We talked about what people need, what people are going through. And if you look at the scheme of a 45-minute episode, we're not going to be able to get everything in because we try to talk about the key and the essential things that we know, that the work that we do is meaningful and that we create an impact in the world and in people's lives. And I understand there might be some uncertainty with getting a coach or getting help, because the idea of getting help means that we failed. We need help. We need someone to assist us. We are not capable on our own. But in reality, we come from an evolution of people. Humans have come from being in groups of people, being in communities, being comrades. And now everyone is so individualized and secular. They have their smartphone. They don't need a doctor. They'll go to Google. They don't have to have someone be there to make a home. They don't need anyone to fill in any role or aspect of their life. And if there is some place where someone needs something filled in, they can pay for it. Money can buy a lot of the things that many people need, whether it be food, shelter, water, sex. I mean, the basic necessities of what people want and desire, that can all be purchased, is for sale. But when we purchase those things, are they helpful? Are we eating the right foods? Do we have a safe environment for us? Are the people that are in our life in and out muddying our minds? Because oftentimes people won't take off their shoes when they enter your mind. They will muddy it up and they will make it toxic. We need to be real with ourselves, and we need to wake up and we need to say, all right, I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to get rid of the people in my life that are not beneficial and helpful to me, the ideas of society that are not helpful to me, and I'm going to start to pave my way the way I see fit. Because what you see might not be what I see. But if you tell me what you see, I can see exactly what you see. I can see that vision. I can see that goal, no matter how far-fetched, no matter how daring, no matter how big that dream is. My job is to facilitate that, to see you grow. And I love to see people grow. I love to see people do better. I love to see people realize that look in their eye when they said they couldn't do something and then they finally achieve it. That's life-changing. And I know the work that Nikki does is similar to the work that I do. It's life-changing. And I encourage anyone to reach out to Nikki, inquire about coaching, to check out her website, to check out all her materials, her blogs, newsletters, anything that she has to offer. Just start that process. And it might not be instant, because sometimes we need that push start and we're going, and we finally pull the trigger. Well, when you pull that trigger, you're going to realize, oh, I should have done this sooner. Because in reality, all we have is time. So we can waste time getting to our dreams, or we can take proper action to get there a lot quicker. And essentially, there is no wasted time. There's learned time. I learned that watching TV for 3 years in a row doesn't help me with success. That's learned, embodied wisdom. And you have a choice. You can go on this journey of life alone, or you can go on this journey with some company. And life's always a little bit better when you have great company. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, you can email me coachinginsession@gmail.com. And I'll see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.